Now as you can see, we end up with 5 different hierarchies. Spine, alright, that's my spine, neck, left and right hand, and pelvis, which is both legs included. Alright, so we have 5 different hierarchies. Alright, what we'll do is to make it our system, our work more understandable and simpler. What we'll do is, let me hide up my hands and the legs right now. Let me hide it. Alright, and we will create the controllers with our neck and our spine. Okay, so we can only focus with 2 different easy hierarchies, so nothing to be so much complicated. We already knows how to create our custom shells here, to create our own controllers. Now we will use the same different designs of our controller to give the different look and feel. First I start with the spine. I simply using a very basic curve controllers. Okay, for the spine one, hide my geometry also to see it more clearly. Duplicate, snap it. When you snap it, again make sure it should be exactly to the center of your joints. Alright, duplicate, snap it here, and duplicate, snap it here, turn on, go to the front and give them a slight size difference so it looks more nicer. Alright, like this. Nice rings. Alright, now all these rings, so called these controllers, are exactly centered to the joints. Okay, this is very important part. Any of your controllers which you want to connect with any of a joint's behavior, make sure they should be right place. Their pivot should be exactly snapped to the joints, that affected joint. Alright, now select all these controllers, center pivot, freeze and delete history. And now I will take this controller, name this is my spine 01, spine 01 controllers. Copy, this would be my spine 02 controller, that would be my spine 03 controller, that would be my spine 04 controller. Okay, take this controller to this joint, constraint, and what we have to do, maintain offset and orient constraint. Right, this joint, this controller to this joint, this controller to this joint, and this controller to this joint. Alright, and then this controller inside of this one, this inside of this parent, this inside of this parent. So I have this entire hierarchy of controllers, so I can use that to rotate my spine. Right, nice. Okay, nice band, even sidewise also. Okay, everything is working fine. Okay, so we finish it off with our controllers to the spine. So such a easy and simple process, no complication. If you keep the basic things in your mind, like placing the controllers centered to the joints, right renaming, right hierarchy, it's very simple. Now the same process, let's continue for the our neck and our jaw. Alright, so again for the neck also, again I use the same circle controllers, simple, easy. Snap it by pressing V. You can see, keep pressing your V in your keyboard and move, so it will snap to the joints. Alright, turn off your mesh so you can give them a little right size. Alright, a visible size. Duplicate, snap it here, duplicate, snap here, turn off my mesh. This controller, reduce the size. This controller, to make it more easily visible, what I'll do, I give them a nice shape, a easy looking shape. Alright, like this, so it can be nicely easily visible. It won't be hide inside of your mesh. For this controller, as you can see, it is going penetrating inside of your skull. So what I can do, once you place it, don't move it, okay? Go to its component and move their components, vertices. So now as you can see, this controller can be visible, alright, nicely. And when I press F8 again, the pivot is still to the center of your joint, alright. Nice, so I select all these controllers, center pivot, or don't do center pivot, freeze and delete history. Alright, name that, this is my neck 01 controller, copy, put the same naming to this guy, neck 2 controller and neck 3 controller, right? So naming is right. Now see, always place the controllers, rename them and then connect them. If you connect them and afterwards when you rename them, it would be very hard for you because the constraint node won't display the same name. Alright, select this and this constraint, orient constraint, this to this joint, this to this joint, and then the same hierarchy, place this controller inside of this and this controller inside of this. So now we have a neck controller also. Alright, okay, see, the neck controllers is also done perfectly fine. Alright, now what we had to do, we had to create a, did you see this option here? Click here so that the joints can be seen through your mesh. Go to the side view and now we have to create a jaw controller to open your mouth, this one. So to do so, what we have to do, I will use my this controller. I click here, here it is, that's my controller. I move snap to this joint here, rotate it like this, move it little out and scale it down. Yes, like this, this is fine, that is enough. Alright, center pivot, freeze, delete history. Alright, hide your mesh and I will change its pivot to your jaw 1 here, because your joint supposed to move from this axis. That's why the controller pivot also should be this point. Alright, then select this controller, rename it, that is my jaw controller. Alright, select this jaw controller and this jawbone constraint orient. So now I can select this guy and rotate it like this. Okay, alright, so my jaw controller is also done. Now the biggest problem is when I move my neck, did you see my jaw controller, it is not going it along. Why? Because I didn't include my jaw controller into the same hierarchy. So select this top neck controller, press P. So now even my jaw controller is also included into the same hierarchy, right? Everything is included. Alright, file, save scene as, and I'll name it as my file 2. Alright, so we finished up creating our controllers for the spine and for the neck and for the jaw. Alright, this much part is done. It's simple, easy. Now what we had to do is we had to give them a look and feel. Actually we'll do the look and feel function settings in the last when we finish it up all our controllers. Then we give them a separate colors, separate behavior, separate limitations, packaging. All right, so packaging would be the final touch up, and packaging would be in the last stage, not now. All right, so we finished up with our spine and the neck, spine and neck controllers. All right, hide them up, we don't require it now. And now let's start working with your hands. All right, complex part. So now we have L hand, right hand. For the hands, what we're going to do, we're going to create our finger controllers like we learn it in our earlier classes, creating our custom attributes, creating our IKFK switch by creating a 3 different hierarchies, IK joints, FK joints, and the base joint, connect them up. So we're going to do all those process for the hands. All right, so let's begin with this process. To begin with, what I'm going to do is L hand, Control G, group them up, and group name would be L hand group. All right, and the pivot should be to the scapula position. So it is exactly right place the way it is. L scapula base, right, because we have all the base joints here. All right, here we go. Same we're going to do with this joint also. Control G to create them group, home R hand group. All right, and the pivot should be to the scapula position here. All right, so R scapula base. All right, so we have a 2 individual groups. Why we require the groups? Because we're going to create a multiple joint chain for one hand, right? One joint chain would be the IK, one would be the FK, another one would be the base. So we're going to create a multiple joint chain to make it our file more easy and understandable. We'll make it clean, precise grouping. All right, now let's first start with left hand. So I'll hide my right hand also. Select this entire group, Control D, duplicate. As you can see, every joint is exactly overlapping to each other, means it is right for our IKFK joints. All right, for IKFK joints, our IKFK function will only work from shoulder to wrist. So we don't require the scapula joint, and we don't require all our finger and thumb joints. All right, we only required shoulder, elbow, and wrist, nothing else. So what I'm going to do is I'll go to first, I will hide my base. All right, it is hidden, and I delete all my fingers. I don't require it. Select my shoulder, Shift P, and delete my scapula also. And this joint would be my L shoulder base. So what I can say, search and replace base and replace it with IK. Replace. So this my L shoulder IK, elbow IK, wrist IK. Perfect, right? Drag and drop inside of your L hand group. So my L hand will contain all kind of hands function into the one group itself. That's my group. This is my base joints, everything, and then this is my IK joints. I duplicate them again, and this one I will replace it with search and replace IK and replace it with FK and replace. So this become my FK elbow, FK wrist, and as you can see it now, everything is exactly overlined to each other, means they are perfect. Let me keep saving a file. File saves in as, and I will save it as my file 3. It's a good habit that every time you keep your incremental saves into the separate stage, so that anything will goes wrong, you don't lost everything. You can just go to the one file, previous one, and correct your work. All right, so this is my FK. Control G, grouped it, and I will name it as my L hand FK. All right, and the pivot should be to the same place, same scapula every time. Okay, same I'll do with IK also. IK joints, Control G, and copy the same naming, place it here and name it to IK group, and change their pivot again to the same scapula position. All right. In fact, change their position to shoulder, because scapula is not the part of FK and IK groups. So we only have shoulder to the wrist. So I keep the pivots, their groups to their shoulders. All right. Now, what is the benefit of these groups? So that when I create my FK controllers and the IK controllers, IK chain, I will place inside their defined groups. All right. So my file would be clean and systematic. So anyone can read my file that, okay, this is my L hand IK group. So all the IK related elements of my hand would be inside of this group. It's simple, easy. And the base group, the mother group, would be the L hand group, which contains everything. So it's a nice, clean, clear naming. All right. Now let's start working on it. First, I will hide my base joint and hide my IK joint. I only have my FK joints visible, so that nothing will distract me, so that I can make a clean connections. Again, I use my curve controllers. Turn on my mesh so that I can scale the controller size according to. All right, like this. Okay, nice, clean. Hide it, duplicate, snap it here, rotation 0, 90 degree, so it would be straight. This controller, make it a little more smaller. And for the wrist, of course, we don't require it, because for the wrist it's going to be included in IKFK, because it have all the finger controllers. So the wrist movement would be the common factor in all the functions. All right. Now select both these controllers, center pivot, freeze, delete history. Make sure your controllers pivot exactly into the center of your joints. Again, I keep repeating these things because I know that these are the small things that you might miss. Okay, so now rename them. This is my L hand FK shoulder controller. All right. Or simple says FK controller shoulder, otherwise it would be very long name. Copy, paste it, elbow. All right. So now you can see all your controllers are clean, clear, freeze transformation, delete history, right naming. Now they are ready to connect. So let's connect them. Constraint, orient. This to this, orient constraint. All right. So why I'm keep telling you that always name them right, because when you create the constraint, it will show the right name here. FK elbow controller. All right. So it is always a good habit that before you connect, rename them, so that the right naming will display into the constraining. All right. After you constrain the FK, what we have to do? Hierarchy of your controllers. So it will be included into the same. Right? Perfect. Now these are the controllers here. It should be the part of what? It should be the part of L hand FK group. So I drag and drop inside. So everything related with FK is inside of FK group. Okay. Now this job is done. I hide FK group, turn on your IK, and let's start working with IK now. Skeleton IK handle. Now which IK solver we have to use, SC or RP? RP. What is the full form of RP? Rotate plane, right. Rotate plane. Okay guys, RP. So click to the shoulder and then to the wrist. So RP means rotate plane, so it will give you this rotation axis. All right, so that in a later stage you can create your elbow bending function. All right. Now this is your IK handle. I'll rename it as my L hand IK handle. Okay, and drag and drop inside of your IK group because it is the same group. And now what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a controller. So I use this box controller. Alright, for the IK. Alright, like this. That's nice. Clean, clear. Center pivot, freeze, delete history. LIK controller. Alright. And then select this IK handle. Shift select this IK controller. Shift select this IK handle. And constraint, which constraint? Point constraint, right? So it would be connected for your IK behavior. Alright. Now again turn off everything to see whether everything is still aligned exactly on the top of. Yes, everything is aligned. Right, so we didn't make any mistake. They are still appropriately aligned. Alright. Now what I can do is I can select my group, the entire group, drag it out. IK group, drag it out. See? There's a mistake. Why? Because I didn't include my IK controller inside of IK group. Now you can drag it out. Okay. Now what would be the next stage? What would be the next stage, guys? Next stage is creating a switch and then connect our IKFK function to that switch, right? And connect to the base. So first let's turn off our mesh again and let's create a finger controller. So let's start with alright, here we go. Place it exactly to the center line like this. Yes, here it is, nicely placed. If you want, you can keep it on the top also, whatever make your work more convenient, because the position of this controller doesn't matter until their pivot is in a right place. So the pivot should be to the wrist. So if the pivot is right, it doesn't matter, right? So we'll keep it on the top so it can be easily visible and selectable. Alright, pivot should be exactly to the wrist again. Alright, now this is the controller where we're going to create all the finger roll, finger spread, thumb roll, all these attributes, and we're going to create IKFK switch also, like we did earlier. Remember, we did the IKFK switch. So let's create IKFK switch. First I'll rename that. That is my L palm controller. So it includes every function related with the palm. Alright, modified. Okay, let me keep saving a file. Modified, add attribute, and which attribute we're going to use? Yes, let's use enum. Enum would be fine. IK FK, click to the enum. So you get two separate channels, rename them. This should be my IK and this should be my FK. Alright, hit add. And here we go. So I can choose IK and FK. Nice pop-up, looking nice, good. Alright, So now my controller is prepared, my switch is prepared. All what we had to do here now is connecting these joints, which is belongs to the separate function, and by using their rotation means when I move it, all what is happening is rotation into the joints. So we're going to use those rotation values and apply to our base by using a orient constraint. So constraint, orient constraint. Same with elbow joint, orient constraint. So now you can see it in both these joints. We have L shoulder IK values, L shoulder FK weighting. Both are here. And the right naming means, that is why I keep emphasizing you always name them right, so that they will appropriately display to your constrainings. If your naming is not right, they won't be displayed it here appropriately. Alright, here we go. So our function is all set. All we had to do is set driven keys. Set driven keys, the driver would be my controller IKFK, which is right now in a IK, means I have to select these joints. Alright, and take both these constraints, load as driven, and put their weighting to IK and FK 0. Hit key. IK 1, FK 0, and hit key. So they both are connected with IK. Now when I change with FK, they will snap their values from IK to 0, FK to 1, hit key, IK to 0, FK to 1, select both the channels and hit key, close. So we are in FK, means complete influence of FK, right, and no influence of IK. When we snap to IK means complete influence of IK and zero influence of FK. Perfect. Our file is working perfectly fine. Saved it. All what we had to do now is keep all these groups to their original position 0, and 0 means exactly on the top of each other, and hide the joints. We don't want to see those joints. And in IK, hide the joints as well as IK handle. Joint 0, IK handle 0. So everything is turned off. We don't want to see them. All what we want to see is these controllers. Alright, so now the next step is connecting the visibility of these controllers. Alright, how we can do? Let's see it, how we can do it. Set driven keys. Again, load as driver IKFK. Right now it is in IK, means my FK visibility should be 0. Hit key. When I choose my FK, they will turn off their visibility. Hit key. Alright, so let's see. When I am in IK, only IK handle. When I am in FK, FK, and load this IK controller and turn off its visibility. Hit key. And when I choose my IK, turn on my IK controller's visibility. Hit key. Close. So now we have IK means according to the IK, FK means according to FK. Solid. Save. Alright. Now what would be the next step now? The next step would be creating our wrist rotation, right? Means I'm going to use this controller to rotate my wrist. And whether I'm in IK, because right now when you are in FK, this controller always supposed to follow your wrist, right? Even when you are in IK, this controller always supposed to follow. So what we had to do, I tell you in a previous class, we had to make a small cheat, right? You have to make this software a little fool. what we're going to do, we will create its own group, connect with the joint, and the controller itself would be responsible to rotate this joint. So select this controller, Control G, center pivot, and change its pivot again to the same position. Okay, and copy the same naming. So this would be the L palm controller group, and L palm, both the pivots are to the wrist. Alright, select the controller, shift select this wrist joint, constraint orient, and select this joint and this group and say constraint point. So wherever this will go, because the group will follow, so its child will also follow, and the child will help you to rotate. Everything is done. Finish with this hand. Save. Alright, so we'll do exactly the same process to right hand. Okay, we cannot duplicate this hand. It don't work on that way. We have to do it manually. But what we can do is, we can always duplicate the same controller, so we get exactly the same size, and we don't have to create this slider. Add attribute, it would be there like default. Alright, so we can do that. Let me turn on my right hand group. That's my right hand group. In that one, what I'll do is duplicate LIK. Alright, and palm controller, and duplicate this entire group all together, and I'll name it as right. Alright, and snap it to this side. After that, freeze delete history, so it becomes my right hand controller group. Delete this constraint and R hand palm. Alright, right name, no history, already have an attribute, which is perfect, good. Duplicate this controller, that would be my RIK controller. Place it to its right position. Center pivot, freeze, delete history. So I get this controller also here available, and all these elements should be L hand, L palm controller also should be the part of L palm group. Alright, and this LIK controller should be the part of LIK group. Yes. Alright, so we have everything is nice. Alright, here we go. Now all which we had to do is shift to FK and take, duplicate, and shift P, so they will come out. Once they will come out, you can change their naming. Right, FK shoulder, FK elbow. Take this guy, snap it to this shoulder to -1, so they will place it exactly there. Freeze it, delete history. Alright, so we have everything, all the controllers already there. All what we had to do is Alright, and now everything is done with my L hand, so I'll hide this L hand, and now let's start. We get all the controllers, everything is nicely placed. FK shoulder, FK elbow, IK controller. Alright, everything is there nicely. All what we had to do is now let's open it and do exactly the same process. Duplicate this joint structure and hide our base, and take this guy, Shift P, delete, and delete all the fingers, and this joint structure, rename them, search for the base and replace it with FK, so it becomes my FK joint. Put it into the R hand group, that is my FK, and my FK controller also I keep it inside of the same group. Take together, group it, group pivot should be to the shoulders, and let's copy exactly the same naming. So that would be my copy, and that would be my R hand FK group, which have my FK controllers also. Alright, drag it out, take this joints, duplicate, and Control D. Alright, drag it out the FK, and now let's start working with IK and change their naming to IK, IK, and IK. Alright, so this is my IK. I will make, and this is the controller. Take both of them, group them, place their pivots to the shoulder, and take the same naming with this group with R hand IK group. Alright, so that is my IK group, and place it inside of R hand group. So we have base, FK, IK. Alright, everything is exactly on the top of each other. See, everything is there. Alright, now we will start making a connection. So first let's begin with FK. Alright, clean. Alright, right naming, constraint, orient, orient. Alright, so this become my FK group. Move it out, it is nicely connected. Yes, turn on your IK group, and now let's create a IK handle, skeleton IK handle. And what is the name we use? Always carry exactly the same naming. Copy the same naming to this hand also, and make it to right, left to right. Alright, and include it into your IK group, so it becomes your IK group. Alright, take this controller, our IK controller, and this IK handle constraint, point constraint. Now we have our IK setup, FK setup, and the base. Alright, now what we can do is combine these ones, constraint, orient, this, and this, orient constraint. Alright, so now you can see we had both our IK and FK influences. Perfect. Now let's do the same, set driven keys, select load as driver IKFK and take both these constraints, load as driven. Right now my controller is in IK, so we'll keep IK influence 1, FK influence 0, hit key, IK influence 1, FK influence 0, hit key, make it to FK. So once it changes to the FK, swipe the values, hit key, hit key, close. Alright, so let's check now. We are in FK means complete FK behavior, right? See it here, perfect FK and 0 influence of IK. When we choose to IK, complete influence of IK, 0 influence of FK. Perfect. We are done. All what we had to do now is playing around with this controller. Our hand. This is base. This is keep everything exactly on the top. And turn off their joints. We don't want to see them. In IK, we don't want to see the joints. And we don't want to see the IK handle also. It's in IK means only the IK controller should be visible, right? Hit key. And FK controllers would be invisible, hit key. When it would be into FK, FK controllers would be turned on, hit key, and IK controller would be turned off, hit key. Alright, FK, IK, FK, IK. Awesome, everything is fine, cool, clear. Alright, now what we have to do, we have to play around with this controller. Alright, so for working with this controller, what we have to do now, select this controller and the wrist joint, constraint, orient, and take this joint and this group, constraint, point constraint. So it will move along with your hand and you can use your wrist rotation. Perfect. And now include this also inside of your R hand group. So both your left and right hands are done. Save. Right, guys? Okay. Now this much we already learned it in our previous class. But what is new here? The new thing is we have a scapula. So how are we going to rotate everything according to the movement of scapula? That is something new. Because we require the scapula joint. When I rotate my scapula, whether I am in IK or whether I am in FK, everything should goes according to. Right? So what we had to do, we had to make a slight changes. Alright, let's do that. Till here, the entire process is exactly the same. Alright, we didn't do anything new. Now let's see what we can do for the next step. For the next step, first I'll start with creating a scapula controller. So let's create the scapula controller. I'm trying to create this semi-sphere kind of a curve. Alright, and here we go. It is done. Nice, clean and clear. Alright, And all what we have to do is take this controller and place it to the scapula. See, the pivot is always to that particular joint. I keep repeating the same thing, don't miss it. And then go to its component mode, to your mesh, drag it out so that it would be visible, small it down because it's too high, place it a little bit out to the body so it can be easily selectable, and press F8 again. So did you see, the pivot is there exactly to the same position and my controller is out, so I can rotate to its own pivot there itself. Alright, select this guy, I name it, that is my L. Is it L? Yes, this is L. L scapula controller. Alright, duplicate and snap it to this side and change it to R scapula controller. Okay, select both of them. As you can see, we have some values, freeze, delete history, but don't make center pivot. Why? Because I already placed my pivot to the right position. If I do the center pivot, my pivot will change again. Alright, so now you can see everything is clear. Right naming, clear, right naming. Alright, now what we have to do, now this is fun. What we need to do is L scapula goes to the L hand group, so my entire group is this. Right scapula controller goes to the right hand group, so my entire group is there. Let's start with L hand first. Let me hide my right hand. Alright, select my scapula controller, shift select your FK group and IK group, scapula controller and the FK group, constraint, parent constraint. Okay, alright, and again scapula to the IK group, constraint, parent constraint, and to the same time select this guy to this joint, scapula joint, constraint, parent constraint. So now this change, let me undo it, something will goes wrong. What is goes wrong, we have to see it. I think I have to check with parent constraints. FK group is constraint, no it's not. Okay, select my scapula, FK group, constraint, parent constraint, and maintain offset, hit add. Okay, important, select the scapula, IK group, constraint, parent constraint with maintain offset, hit add. Then scapula, and then scapula joint by itself, constraint, parent constraint. Alright, so what will happens now when I go to my FK, I select this guy here and rotate the entire hand together, as you can see, right? Whether you are in FK, see, even the controller are also going along. Why? Because we constrain the entire group. Okay, but there is a issue. Issue is, now this is actually not the issue, but it is actually a technical difficulty. Now this is something important to know. Why exactly the animators required FK and IK controllers? Let's say for an example, if I am a animated character and I'm standing here with this pose here, okay, with this pose, and I am walking around, but my hand will stays to its own position. Will it be possible in FK? No, FK it won't be possible. Why? Because if my upper body is moving, it will affect to the lower body because it's a forward kinematics, right? But if I'm in IK, it is possible. So if my hand will be into the table, I can walk around because I'm in a IK mode, and that is why the animators required both function IK and FK. So they can place the hands to its own position and move the entire body without affecting its position. And I can move around with, I can walk around with without affecting my this palm position. Okay, but the complex part is when I did my scapula parent constraint, it will work perfectly fine with FK. See, it is working perfectly fine. But when I choose my IK, and when I do so, it won't work perfectly fine because my palm supposed to stays to its own position. So why exactly it is happening? Because I constrained my complete IK group, and my IK controller, my IK handle, they both are inside of my IK hand group. So what you have to do is you have to open your IK hand group, take out your IK handle and the IK controller and drag it out to the out of a IK group and place it to the just inside of your L hand group. So now when you can select it, when you rotate, did you see your palm will stays there itself? Means I can place my palm anywhere I want. Consider that this is my palm resting to the table and I can rotate without affecting. See? And it is not moving. It stays its own position. And that's why we required to again take it out, my IK handle and IK controller out from the IK group. You understand the logic also and the requirement? Alright. So that is why first always constrain with both the groups, and after that just take it out from the IK group and let it be inside of a main group itself. Don't take it out from the main group. Let it be inside of a main group, but just outside of your IK hand group. That's it. Okay, so now we have still select the entire hand group and everything is one. Alright. And we get our scapula controller also. So it is working perfectly with IK as well as like in FK, it is work perfectly with FK also. Super. Everything done. Let's do the same thing with another side, another hand. So now you guys will keep telling me what we have to do here. We have FK group, IK group and scapula controller. So select the scapula controller, shift select FK group, constraint, parent constraint with, check with maintain offset. Hit add. Again select your scapula controller and now this time IK group, constraint, parent constraint, and now open your IK group and take out your IK controller and IK handle and just place it out to the IK group. So now we have IK and still it is working perfectly fine. It is not working. See, we are in IK. Why it is not working? Yes, I still didn't connect with the joint constraint, parent constraint with the joint also, right? I missed one step. Constraint, parent constraint. So now here we go. It's working perfectly fine. We are all done. Our hands are all finished. Okay. Alright, so we'll end up till this stage here, guys. You guys can finish it up till this stage. Submission of your, what you can do is every one of you guys, okay, forget about the previous submission IKFK, finish it up till this stage, every one of you guys, because this one already included IK and FK switch. Submit this file. And today is the submission. Why, Kevin? Because sorry, but we don't have a time. Okay, and I want every one of you guys to now please consider character setup in a little more priorities. Submit it up today. So tomorrow when I come, I want to see everyone's submission to where? I want to see everyone's submission to our artist server, submission, DB27, character setup, IKFK switch. People who already submitted, it's on your choice. Okay, it's on your choice. Tomorrow, do we have a tomorrow lesson? Day after tomorrow, for the whole day we have. Wednesday. Whole day, from morning all the way to the 6, not even in 5. We'll sit all the way to the 6 p.m. Alright. And we will cover a lot of things. Alright, because now we are rushing with the time. Okay, guys? Save it here. This is the path, no? Save it here. Okay, guys, every one of you guys who already submitted the previous file, please submit this one also, okay? Alright, guys? Everyone submit till this stage. Yes, Kevin? Oh, let me first save this video. Just a minute. Save this video.